If you look at the title of this video, you must be very confused, and so let me slowly explain into the Yelan pre-release analysis. I mean, after all, how can Yelan be the most broken limited 5-star character, but yet still not being worth it? Well, to be honest, it is rather simple. Objectively speaking, currently in Genshin Impact, xingqiu is the second most broken character in the entire game. So if Yelan somewhat reassembles xingqiu either better than him or just being the exact same as xingqiu, then that automatically put Yelan somewhere around the second best character of the entire game, including the 4-star, which automatically make her the strongest limited 5-star in existence. However, keep in mind that power level is not always the same as values. Just because a character is powerful doesn't automatically mean that they have a lot of value, although it surely does increase their values. In this case, you know, if Yelan is just the same as xingqiu, then why do I care to have a Yelan when my xingqiu honestly just works just fine? Well, aside from booba reasons, but that's what we're gonna be talking about today. But you know what else we're gonna be talking about? Today's sponsors of the video. I was a huge fan of Studio Ghibli movie when I was a kid, but have you guys ever wanted to also live inside a Studio Ghibli movie? Well, now you can, with Ni no Kuni Crossworld from Netmarble coming to globally to the PC and mobile platform. Ni no Kuni has really amazing and beautiful graphic as well as soundtrack. I was given an early build to play to try it out on stream, and I had a lot of fun with this game, especially with how beautiful the game is. Rather than gameplay though, it is actually much more like a overall really polished experience where you are actually part of the world itself and you can interact with a lot of things in the world. The game has 5 different unique classes, including the Destroyer, the Witch, the Swordsman, the Rogue, as well as the Engineer. So there is bound to be a playstyle that is suitable for you, but not only for you, but also for your friends. You and your friends will be able to gather up to tackle down difficult bosses as well as dungeons. So overall, it is not just the experience for you, but also for your friends. So be sure to let them know as well. Ni no Kuni Crossworld is open for pre-registration right now. Overall, really excited about this game, so don't forget to check it out using the link in the description below. And again, thank you for sponsoring this video. Before we start, we are really close to the 100k subscriber mark, and it will help a lot if you just hit the subscribe button. Anyway, let's get started. There's a few ground rules I want to lay out just before we start, especially for the people who are watching our video for the first time. Number 1, pre-release analysis are meant to sway you away from hyping over the characters, as the worst thing about Genshin Impact is you overhype on the characters, you pull on day 1, and then you realize that character is not strong and you have wasted all your primo or maybe even your money. This happened a lot of time in the past, especially with certain characters like Zhongli. Number 2 is that we don't talk about damage calculation in a pre-release analysis. Well, we will just do the proper damage calculation and evaluate the character's damage when the character is actually out, and we can ensure that we have the proper rotation and the frame data for the characters. Yelan pretty much more or less play exactly like xingqiu, especially with her elemental burst being more or less identical to xingqiu, which is every time you normal attack, you shoot out free wave of some kind of water and it will apply hydro, probably a 1 UV gauge hydro. However, as xingqiu's elemental burst lasts longer, on top of the fact that xingqiu C6 allow him to apply more hydro, inevitably xingqiu is gonna apply more hydro than Yelan. On top of that, xingqiu also have other utility aside from its other hydro applications, including damage reduction, healing, as well as interrupt resistance increase. These are all utility that Yelan does not have and is missing. However, in return for trading those utility, Yelan does have the potential of doing more damage than xingqiu, simply because she is a 5-star character with 5-star scaling, on top of the fact that her A4 talent allow her active party member to do even more damage in a ramping fashion. Yelan A4 talent is a really interesting one, and it's what we like to refer to as a ramping damage bonus buff. What that means is that the damage bonus that you get ramp up slowly over time, starting from really low, like 1%, all the way to 50% when the duration ends. What that also means is that Yelan prefer to run with hyper carry character who will stay on the field for a while to make sure that they can fully take advantage of this buff, or at least to maximize effect. So we're looking at a character like Yoimiya, maybe to some extent like even Raiden or Yelan. In fact, Yelan is actually a really good example. Since Yelan damage is backloaded and it come out after 7 seconds, it means that more of her damage can actually take advantage of a higher buff, since when Yelan damage actually come out during her backloaded damage portion, your buff will be ramped up to a high percent of amount, which means that you will be able to do more damage on that big hit. Now, I'm not saying that Yelan aka Shadow Yelan is going to be the way to play this new characters, although I do think it has potential. I'm simply using it as a illustration of what a ramping buff is and how certain character can take more advantage of it. The other major difference between xingqiu's and Yelan is that Yelan elemental skill make her go into Naruto run. Unfortunately, this is actually a downside because usually a whole version of skills like these are not being used in combat because they just take up way too much field time. Yelan having a 10-second cooldown on this indicate that she might not generate that much energy, and this is actually going to be a problem for her since usually you want to just quickly cast your elemental skills and then get out. And in this case, not only she generate less energy, but she also take longer field time. Overall, Yelan looked like a direct xingqiu's competition or replacement, but is that really true? To be honest, I don't really think it's correct to look at Yelan as a xingqiu's replacement. The thing is, xingqius just have much more utility than Yelan as we mentioned, and usually those are really valuable for all the team that we care to put xingqius in. However, the biggest difference between Yelan and xingqius is the rotation they play out. Yelan take longer field time than xingqius simply because her elemental skill is going to take much longer to cast than xingqius. However, on top of the fact that her elemental burst is a completely different duration than xingqiu's, xingqiu's work with about a 20-second rotation, and it worked perfectly fine with character like Hu Tao or Xiangling at the current moment. On the other hand, Yelan uses a 15-second duration elemental burst with a 18-second cooldown, which means that her rotation doesn't line up perfectly compared to xingqiu's. This creates a problem where you might not be able to vaporize every single one of your attack when it comes down to Hu Tao or Xiangling. And well, to be honest, that is not a huge problem. It is certainly a small amount of problem. Like, you can probably still do something like a Hu Tao Yelan team, but there is a chance that it just doesn't work as well as xingqiu's. In that case, the question is, well, why wouldn't I just run xingqiu's instead, who is not only a 4-star character, which means that he is easy to get, but he's also free in some of the more recent events, like the one we just have with the Ayato event. There's actually a secondary problem on top of that, however, and that is Yelan elemental burst apply only barely enough gauges for someone like Hu Tao to vaporize. When you do a normal and a charge attack on Hu Tao, that is 2 reaction, which would consume her entire elemental burst. What that means is if you happen to also apply another pyro or something like that in the time period, you could potentially screw up your rotation permanently for that rotation. For example, something like Hu Tao Blood Blossom, Coma Elemental Burst applying pyro, or if you're running Hu Tao with double Geo, something like a Albedo proc or a Zhongli Pillar Resonance could screw up your rotation by taking away hydro gauges. Again, there is barely enough hydro for Hu Tao to do her rotation, and so any other reaction on top of that will screw up your damage. At the current moment though, there's no way for us to tell if this will be the case or not. However, this just serves as an important call out that she might have potential issues working with some of the character in the game. The best way for you to figure it out is simply wait a week after the character release for further confirmation when it comes down to rotation testing or ICD testing. Basically, those are just long way of saying that Yelan in work in team where xingqiu's is currently required, which is like Hu Tao, Raiden National, or Sucrose Taser, but we just don't know if it's gonna work as well as xingqiu's since you're giving up a lot of utility for potentially some amount of damage gain that we will have to do with damage calculation. But tossing all of these out the window, the most important question to ask yourself is, why do I care for 2 xingqiu's? Now, this is an interesting question because for the longest time in Genshin Impact, people will always say, I wish I have 2 xingqiu's, I would really like 2 xingqiu's. But do you really need 2 xingqiu's, or do you even need the first xingqiu's? For someone like me who only play International and Morgana in the Abyss, I don't actually even use xingqiu's anymore because I just use Chao and Kokomi. While Hydro Applicator is part in pretty much every single meta team, there are so many Hydro characters in the game right now like Chayo, Kokomi, Mona, and Ayato that can already do the job, and to be honest, they are all already xingqiu's 2.0 to many extent. Unless you're running a exact combination that take exactly 2 xingqiu's, like Raiden National on one side and then Hu Tao team on the other side, then the argument of you need to roll Yelan because she's a second xingqiu's honestly just doesn't really work that well when other Hydro characters that can also do the job already exist. It doesn't mean that she is weak, but just not as necessary as one might would have thought previously. Fortunately for Yelan, there is still an answer and solution, and that is simply just pair Yelan and xingqiu's together. In that case, you don't have to worry if I'm gonna use Yelan to replace xingqiu's. You don't have to worry if Yelan is a second xingqiu's because, well, you need both of those characters to be paired together, so you need both of them. Just like xingqiu's, Yelan's entire kit is fully deployable, and the greatest thing about xingqiu's on top of his Hydro application is that he actually does a lot of single target damage. So when you can get 2 of those bind together, 2 deployable super single target damage start together, you can probably draft some team that does crazy amount of damage, like Hu Tao xingqiu Yelan together, or maybe Ayato xingqiu Yelan together to draft some mono hydro team. I think these kind of teams actually have really high potential because not only it solves a lot of her core gameplay issues, but it also just solved the question of why would I want to roll for Yelan when I already have xingqius? Well, the answer is because you want to put both of them together, not on separate different teams. Overall, I would currently rate Yelan at a 3.5 out of 5, indicating that she is a decent role above average, but not a super strong solid role or even a must role. With the upside of being able to work with xingqiu stills, I think there is argument for it to be a little higher, but to be honest, I debated over this for a long time and I thought 3.5 is the appropriate level, which put her in line with pretty much the other hydro characters. Too long didn't read, Yelan might or might not be identical to xingqius, which make her a second xingqius, but why would I not just run xingqius over her? Do I need 2 identical xingqius? Those are questions to be answers. With that being said, that's gonna be the end of the video. As always, thanks for watching. We will be doing Yelan testing on day 1, so don't forget to subscribe for that, and I'll see you all next time.